Good evening and welcome to the Vineland Board of Education open work session for Wednesday, March 1st, 2017. Roll call, Ms. Haley?
Ms. Acosta?
Here.
Ms. Cottaspoti?
Present.
Mr. Fiocchi?
Here.
Mr. Medio?
Here.
Mr. Pagano? Ms. Rios? Mr. Sabrana?
Present.
Mr. Boardley? Mr. Jennings?
Present. And I'd like to announce that Joe and Damaris both have some personal issues. They contacted me, and we all know what's going on with Mr. Boardley. In compliance with the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law, commonly referred to as the Sunshine Law, the Vineland Board of Education has caused notice and posting of the meeting to be sent to the following, announcing time and place thereof, agenda, etc. The Daily Journal, the Press of Atlantic City, the Grapevine, the Clerk for the City of Vineland, and the Administrative Office Public Bulletin Board. All rise for the flag salute.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have a resolution for executive session?
I do. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education of the City of Vineland School District will convene into executive session on Wednesday, March 1st, 2017, for the following reasons as outlined in NJSA 10:4-12. Discussion of labor negotiations with VASA and non-certificated supervisors and any matters falling within the attorney-client privilege to the extent the confidentiality is required in order for the attorney to exercise his ethical duties as a lawyer.
Thank you, Ms. Haley. Special presentations?
We need a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Roll call, Ms. Haley.
Ms. Acosta?
Yes.
Ms. Cottaspoti?
Yes.
Mr. Fiocchi?
Yes.
Mr. Medio?
Yes.
Mr. Sabrana?
Yes.
Mr. Jennings?
Yes. Okay, now special presentations. Mr. Frangipani?
Thank you. Yes, we have a special request from Ms. Cottaspoti. She wanted an update on the Almond Road preschool, and we also have an update on the Landis Middle School facilities. Mr. Larry Marigi, architect from Randers, Marigi, Portain, and Farrell, and Mr. Wayne Weaver, executive director of facilities, will give an update on these two projects.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Larry Marigi. I'm the the district's architect of record. I was asked to do a really short There's only 8 slides on Landis School, just some basic information. So, next slide. So, Landis School, just so everyone knows, built 1927. It's its 90th anniversary. It's about 71,000 square feet in area. There's only been one addition to the school, which was a modular in the back. It's 4 classrooms. Actually, it's 20 years ago. It was in 1997. So the school is about just about 76,000 square feet. It's 3 stories, and it's on the National Historic Register. Next slide. So I did an analysis. I was asked to look at it, as a middle school, just to confirm the numbers. And if the way the Department of Ed looks at classrooms, they take the size of the room, they compare it to what in their model, what, let's say, a middle school or an elementary school, the size of the room would be. They also indicate how many students per room, and you can actually calculate what they call a functional capacity. So if we look at, I say large rooms, science, we have 4 rooms that are used for science, were used for science at Landis. They're undersized by the state model. So I just assumed, they're approved. We can have 23 students in each room, because in middle school, we look at 23 students per classroom. But the state, when they look at other classrooms, they look at the square footage and compare it to the state model. So if we have the average of most of the classrooms is 640 square feet, you divide it by 800, it's 80% efficient, times 23, you get 18.4 students, 26 classrooms, you get 478 students. And technically, there were 3 self-contained special ed classrooms. Again, a little smaller than the 600 that the state recommends. So we have the capacity for 37 students. You can see there's 607 students. The capacity, technically, the functional capacity is 90% of that. The state recognizes you can never have a perfect group of kids going around in a school. So the functional capacity is 546. I went to the district's long-range facilities plan. It's 545, and that was from 2005 was actually when they did that. So the actual capacity of what Landis had back in 2014 was 501 students, less than that amount. That's going back. I'm sure in years prior to that, there was more students. Next slide. So then I looked at it as an elementary school with no renovations, rooms not grouped by grade. In other words, there's 30 classrooms at Landis, plus a computer lab, an art room. Music room is out in the annex, or at least that's where it was. So I said K to 5, 6 grades, 5 classrooms per grade. I assumed the largest classrooms to be kindergarten classrooms. Obviously, because kindergarten classrooms, if you look at the chart, 950 square feet per classroom. Grades 1 to 21 students in a class. Grades 1st through 3rd, classroom size drops to 850. But still 21 students per class. And then 4th and 5th grade, it drops to 800, but jumps to 23 students per classroom. So I did the exact same thing. I looked at you could see kindergartens are about 85% efficient, grades 1 through 3, because we have a lot of rooms that are 500 and some square feet in the school, drops down to 17 students per classroom, 82% efficient. And then 4th and 5th, they're the smallest rooms in the school. They're 0.68, but you go up to 23 students. So you can see we have a capacity of 505 students, a functional capacity of 455. About 100 students less than as a middle school. I ran one more quick scenario, the next page, where if we did minor renovations to make the kindergarten classrooms, the Department of Ed really wants kindergarten classrooms to have bathrooms and to be really close to that 950 square feet each. But I also looked at it, and when we go to the next slide, but we'll stay on this one for a second. We really only get 28 classrooms, because I had to take some classrooms, take basically 3 rooms and make them 2 to get closer. But you can see, even though it's 28 classrooms, I actually have more students because I have higher efficiency. Kindergarten classrooms are at 955 square feet each. They're supposed to be 950. 1 through 3, we're still at that 0.82, but grades 4 and 5, because I had other rooms that were larger, and I went to 28 classrooms, I get more efficiency. I get 19 students per classroom. So again, there's not 30 classrooms, it's 28, but I get up to 510, 459. Again, it works both ways. So you can do minor renovation, reduce 2 classrooms, and have them meet more of the state standard. But you could see there's a delta of 100 students if you compare the two. If you want, there's 3 other slides just to give you an idea how Landis would work as an elementary school. This is the basement. The basement only has 4 classrooms, an art room, a computer lab, and I basically put 2 third grades down there. Again, this is just a hypothetical layout. If you go to the next slide on the first floor, you can see the classrooms. Kindergartens are that light purple. The pale greenish, again, is probably first grades, maybe a second grade. The yellow is the annex. You can only get to those 4 classrooms from the exterior, so I assume they would be 4th and 5th grade. And you go to the second floor on the last slide that I have, and you can see the rest of the 4th and 5th grades in yellow, and the, let's say, the third grades and maybe a couple of second grades in that pale blue-green. So again, it's a real short presentation on, how the State Department of Ed looks at schools and capacities. You could see that as a middle school, it really, that sweet spot is that 545 students. But as an elementary school now, I want, everyone, to understand, Landis can be an elementary school. The only thing the district would need to do is go to the Department of Ed for a change of use from going from a middle to an elementary school. Quite frankly, the district's long-range plan needs to be updated because of the new school that's coming online. Landis was always planned to stay as a middle school in the long-range plan. So making it an elementary school, you apply to the state, you make a cogent argument as to why it can be an elementary school. But again, I wouldn't anticipate having more than 450 to 500 students in the school as an elementary school. So I can answer any questions you have specifically about Landis.
Anyone, any
or
questions?
Wayne. Yeah.
Ellen, you have a question?
I was also thinking that you were going to go over the items that are on the agenda already, the different items that we have. I mean, on 3.1 says discussion regarding the approval of a resolution declaring Landis Middle School is no longer needed for educational purposes and authorizing and directing the superintendent to apply to the NJDOE for permission to close Landis Middle School as an educational facility.
Well,
You
to
could
that
address that.
end, obviously, there's, people are talking about the ability to make Landis School an administration building. So to give, I don't have slides for that, but to give you an idea, obviously, we have administration offices in this building and 17 West Landis Avenue. If you look at Plum Street, the building we're in now, which is about 30,700 square feet, West Landis Avenue is 16,000 square feet, so we're only talking about 47,000 square feet. If you're looking at it as Landis is at 75,000 square feet, yes, it's a lot, the area for administrative offices is a lot smaller than Landis School. However, Landis has a large gymnasium and it has the auditorium. It also has a basement. So, my firm has looked at, if we were to put the offices that are in this building, along with those offices that, I guess, the business office that is at 17 West Landis, because obviously transportation is also there. We have about 36,000 square feet. Again, 30,700 in this building, and at about 5,400 is the business office over at 17 West Landis. It's 36,000 square feet. We were planning to put those offices on the first and second floor of Landis, which happens to be 36,000 square feet. So it's not a major expansion of administration, but it's just using 2 floors, not using the basement, not using the gym and auditorium. So, we would try to keep the offices on those 2 levels with minor renovation work. Very few walls we are planning to take out between classrooms and really trying to work with what was there. So.
I think you said, Larry, that the total renovation was like 17,000
Yeah,
square feet.
it's about 17,
18,000.
18. If you take those 2 floors, and again, that includes the corridors. We're really not renovating the corridors, but, Landis has a lot of circulation space because, if you've been in the school, it's very wide. There's major stairwells. There's the main entrance coming in. When you look at, now, similar to this building, too, we have stairways. They're not as grandiose as Landis. But when you compare it to a school, a lot of our schools are 1 story, especially our elementary schools. There's no stairways, and the corridors are smaller. So, so obviously, if the board wanted to make Landis an administration building, we would, as Haley said, have to apply to the Department of Ed to take the school offline and then use it for an office. So it's taking it offline as a school. But it's not closing the school, not getting rid of the property, basically. So,
The next item that is on here is under 3.4, discussion regarding the approval of the following New Jersey DOE other projects for schematic and final approval with no state funding requested. There's a list of items, and this is typical that we have submit them, but there's one that says Landis School Central Administration.
Yes.
If you could address that, please.
Well, obviously, it's what I basically just said. It would be making 2 floors of the school offices, all those spaces that are in here, and 17 West Landis in the front part of the building for now. Obviously, it has the ability, if you know, the district may want to consider in the future, if it were to go ahead with this plan, move transportation also to Landis School, and then that building could be sold, or like you're doing with other properties in the district. I mean, it's a great location right on Landis Avenue near Delsey Drive.
And can you just explain the purpose for having this approval of all the different projects that are listed here? It doesn't mean we're necessarily doing these projects, but these are ones, this is the next step in order to approve.
These are
one.
the roof replacements, the whole list?
The locker room upgrades, secure
Oh,
entrance,
yeah, okay.
roof replacements.
Well, Department of Ed, if a project is considered a capital project, not regular maintenance, you apply to the Department of Ed for a state plan number. We receive state plan numbers on every project we submitted. Now that the board would approve submitting them to the project, now that we have a number, submitting to them to the Department of Ed for approval. And it's pretty standard. I think in the last 30 years I've been working for the district, we've never had a project rejected. And Helen used the word other. Other means it's district funds. It's not the SDA involved with these projects, so.
And then the one last item that I was hoping you would address is the elevator bid. We have an elevator bid on here.
Yes, you know, we received bids last week for an elevator project. It was approximately
$336,600.
Yes. It's interesting, if again, for those who are familiar, well, this is, I don't know if I can point on here. Obviously, there's stairways that land this at either end. There is the main entrance. If you go back one slide, if that's okay. Right here, which is this, what we refer to as a monumental stair, right in the front. Adjacent to it, a lot of people don't realize there's another stairway. It's on the side. And what we would do is that stair is not required by code. So we would remove the stair and actually put the elevator within that stair shaft. So because that stairway, that access, the main entrance to Landis, you go up steps, then you go in the doors, then you go up another flight of steps. The beauty of this stair, it's only like, I think 1 or 2 steps up. You can do a small little sidewalk going up to it, and it would be ADA accessible. And the elevator would be a 4-stop elevator because it's at a grade. It would go down to the basement, and it would go up to the 1st and 2nd floor. It would be an elevator that has doors front and back. So you can go in and then you'd get off. So it's, I think it's interesting in the long-range plan, for some reason the state had $1.6 million to build the stairway in the back of the school and blowing through the classroom on the lower level and then through a classroom on the 1st and 2nd floor. That number was kind of bogus that the state had in there. To be honest, the building, since it's on the National Historic Register, but the interior is not, I think the state, the Office of Historic, the State Historic Preservation Office, SHPO, would be very supportive of the elevator being placed in the area where there was an existing stairway, because it's, both of them are circulation, so there's a logic to it. Again, it's, whether it's a school or an office building, the elevator is really important. It was recognized in the long-range plan that, that building is not accessible. Assuming the district wants to maintain that building as part of its, in its pot of buildings, and I think putting an elevator in is a great idea, no matter how it's used, making a building accessible.
Thank you, Mr. Marie.
I have a couple questions.
Kim has some
They're kind of
questions.
two different areas. First, when you were going over it as a school, you went through as a middle school and you went through it as a K through 5. What would the functional capacity be for like a K through 3? I mean, it would
It would be a
add
little
more.
less.
It would be less.
It'd actually be less, because again, 4th and 5th grade are only, classrooms are 800 square feet, and you can have 23 kids. If we
Okay.
go K to 3, you're at 21 students and a little bit larger. Maybe 30 kids less.
Okay.
I mean, it wouldn't be a lot.
All right.
Yeah.
And now as to whether it be an office building, I'm good for playing the devil's advocate. So I have a couple questions. What would be like a timeline to get this accomplished
Well,
for an office building?
Okay. The assumption, well, it depends on how quickly the district would want to move with this. I would assume it would take 6 to 9 months from start of design to completion. Again, there's the DOE approval, it's going out to bid.
And that's not having any kind of like setback, like with lead paint or asbestos or anything like that could be?
That is correct.
And you
Yes.
kind of answered my historical question. I was wondering, because the outside of the building, I guess, is now deemed historical.
Yes.
Who would we go to, or who could tell us what has to be done and what can't be done?
Well,
I know sometimes in a historical building, even it being outside,
Yeah.
you can't drill a hole in certain areas, or I'm just,
Well, again, because the interior is not part of that approval, we have a historic preservationist on staff. We're doing 3 major projects right now in Bridgeton, which is in a historic district. It's a SHPO approval. I mean, it's basically a lot of paper. And actually, it's my partner's wife, it's Holly Manders. She was actually worked on the Landis School when it was originally put on the National Historic Register. So I think my firm has that covered. We are pretty confident there would be no issue with.
I think I'm asking a lot because, I mean,
That's okay,
we
yeah.
might hear it, but a lot of the public isn't going to
Yeah,
hear it. I mean,
yeah.
I know we're live streamed, I know we're taped, so people might have these questions and not be able to ask them, unless it's here at a meeting. I have one more question. Mechanically, how efficient is the building, or will it be, like electric, air, heat, things like
Obviously,
that?
there would be technology upgrades that would have to be made in an office. But my firm wasn't involved with the project. It was actually an SDA project. At the time, they redid a lot of the HVAC system. I wasn't involved with that. Our engineers have gone in and did it and looked at it, and they say we basically work with what is there. We're trying, again, by not moving walls and working with existing walls, we could just leave everything alone. So it becomes a little bit more cosmetic. But I would say, from an engineering standpoint, it's more technology, getting data wiring where we need it. And I know the school has a lot of that now, but it's just moving things around to
That's
make.
pretty much most,
Yeah.
I mean, whether it stays a school or it
Yeah.
moves into an office building, so things that have to be done.
From my perspective, what's interesting as an office for the district, obviously it gets the business office all in one location. I like the idea that the auditorium is there for a board meeting that would be a large board meeting, and also for the community. I mean, then it really becomes this community building that's not a school per se, using Landis Auditorium. And I think there's really nice benefits to that. We've been involved in schools, historical schools being torn down for similar reasons. Obviously, if you're familiar with the Cleary School, which, they felt really, it was an important school to them, but it just didn't work. It was more like Cunningham. It was small, it was 3 stories, it wasn't accessible, the rooms were tiny, so it really doesn't work as a school. But
But Kim, one of the things, the slate roof was replaced about 10 years ago. So we got approximately 80 years out of the original roof. That was done by the SDA. You'll see we have 2 sections of flat roof, EPDM roof, that we want to replace. That's budgeted for next year. That's over the auditorium area. So they're the kind of things that we want to continue with the upgrades. The windows were replaced in the 90s, the late 90s. Mechanicals were replaced about the same time. Paul has reviewed the mechanicals. We've had the engineering, BCCLT, take a look at it. It does have upgraded windows. The HVAC has been upgraded. So overall, mechanically, it's in good shape. So these types of upgrades that we're going to do would only enhance the building.
Right. I mean, and as I ask questions, I hear questions, people from the public ask, and so I try to present things that I hear on both ways so that, everybody can kind of hear what's going on. So we hear things, they hear things, so I just kind of wanted to bring it out there, so.
I'd just like to add, in the 17-18 budget right now, the proposed budget, there's $450,000 in our capital outlay for the renovations that Larry is referring to make it administration offices.
Anyone else? Mr. Medio?
I don't have any questions of
Mr.
them.
Sabrana?
Wayne didn't do his yet. Wayne did.
Well, I'm strongly in favor of keeping Landis School as a school. I think I stated that at last month's meeting. My position hasn't changed on that. Also, I have a couple other questions. What happens to this building if the administration moves to Landis?
Dr. Gruccio and myself actually had a meeting with the mayor, and there is some discussion about the city of Vineland purchasing this building from the district.
And this is one of the reasons, and that motion died on the table, of having a budget committee of the whole, so issues like that can be brought forward and say, okay, what will be the disposition of this building? I also think it's important to note that there's between 400, I see two numbers, $450,000, $483,000 in next year's budget for the renovations to turn that into an office, which also includes a 4% tax increase for the citizens of this community. So on top of my strong objection to doing anything with that building and having kids there and experience history in a living, breathing way, I'm not sure that the taxpayers of this community would want to pay that much more to do that, because there's nothing in this plan of turning it into an office for kids.
Thank you, Mr. Sabrana. Mr. Fiocchi? Ms. Acosta? Anything? Okay, we're going to move on to the Almond Road preschool disposition.
Okay, just
Thank
wanted to give a brief history of the Almond Road building. We entered into a lease in 2011 for that building. At the time, we had a demand for the pre-K enrollment. And also, I wanted to mention that in the long-range facility plan, there is, right now in the plan, to actually expand the pre-K. At that time, 2011, the SDA was talking about actually building the district a building. When we entered into this lease, our hopes were that the SDA would actually purchase this building through Treasury. Obviously, that never happened. One of the things that we also did with the building, we had to create a standalone HVAC mechanical system. So the district actually paid for that through a rent abatement. We ended up with a 2-year rent abatement, which actually covered the cost of the renovation work. So at that point, we had numerous meetings with the DOE, the SDA, Dr. Gruccio, myself, Van Drew. We actually tried many angles to try to get this building secured for the district. And obviously, in the end analysis, the district made a decision not to renew that lease. So that's where we are today.
Any questions?
I'm just curious, Mrs. Carter-Spotty, what did you want to know about the Almond Road?
I wanted, people were asking me what was going on with the Almond Road School, why it was closing, why we decided to not go forward with it, things like that. So I just asked Mr. Weaver to come and explain, people that don't know the history of Almond Road.
And that number hasn't changed from 3.5 million, has it?
The discussions we had with Treasury, the number, they had an appraisal done, and they're telling us that they're legally bound by that $3.5 million.
So we went from $1 to 3.5 million.
Our hopes initially was to get the building through the SDA, which would have been a no cost to Vineland Public Schools. And what happened, there was, just as we were involved in this, there actually was a law change that the SDA was prohibited to actually purchase or build standalone pre-K centers. That was our big problem. If that wasn't in place, they would have been able to go ahead and secure that building, because it was in our long-range plan for a new pre-K center. But they felt that a standalone building is a costly process.
Right. And we are still in a situation where our preschool enrollment is declining and has shown a trend downward. Was an anomaly of 1 year, right?
Yeah, as far as I know, yes.
It has been declining, but in the budget that was approved in December in the enrollment, it made up for that, where they're going to the providers, and we should be full now internally.
But barring some inexplicable blip upward, we don't anticipate a need for that space.
Correct.
Mr. Medio?
When was that law changed?
It was when Chris Christie, when he just started reevaluating the SDA, and I believe that was right when we were out to bid on middle school too, the first round when they stopped that. I don't know the exact date on it, but that law was put into place after he did a complete reevaluation of the SDA. And what was happening, we were not the only district that were looking at standalone buildings. And they felt it was a very costly endeavor going out and purchasing standalone buildings. So what they want you to do is do an addition to one of your existing buildings.
Mrs. Haley? You're not going to do it now, of course, but when you get a chance, go back and look up the history of Almond Road, because my memory's going a little bit. I don't remember the board ever being told that the $1 offer was taken off the table. So the board had to be told somewhere along the line in the past 2 or 3 years that they weren't getting the building for $1. And I don't remember that at all. Either a closed session, probably in negotiations or something, because why would you keep spending all of this money on this building when the providers in the district, in the community, are more than happy to add on rooms, and the parents in the community are more than happy to send their kids there? So why would we keep pouring rent into this and sending it to the state when we could put it into the providers and give it directly to our students?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Medios. Any other questions? Thank you, Wayne.
Okay.
Thank you, Wayne.
Next, we have Mr. Pravesh Patel, Director of Food Services, who will honor the 2016 Vineland Health Department 5-Star Award recipients. Mr. Patel?
Thank you, Mr. Franchpani. Hello, everyone. My name is Pravesh Patel, currently the Food Service Director with Sodexo, and I am pleased to present to you our 5-star recipients for the 2016 Vineland Health Department. Every year, hundreds of establishments are inspected, food establishments are inspected by the Vineland Health Department, and only a handful get selected for this award. This year, it gives me great pleasure to present to you our 2016 recipients for the 5-star award. From Vineland High School North, we have Tracy Ness. From Memorial Veteran Middle School, we have Michelle DiVincenzo. For Wallace Middle School, we have Diane Pease. From Sabatier Elementary School, we have Michelle Pagan. Durand Elementary School, we have Lori Kalowitz. From Max Leuchter Elementary School, we have Rosaline Chavez. And from Petway Elementary School, we have Lisa Giordano. And DePalato Elementary School, Paulo Moy. Great job, team.
Could you approach so we can give out the certificates, please? Are they here? Sure. Go ahead.
If the school principal's here, if they want to join in the picture, that would be very nice. Principals who came out, who support these programs. Thank you, Mr. Patel, for the great work that you're doing in our schools and what you do for our children every day.
Mr. Frangipani.
Next, we have my dear colleague Nathan Fry, our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. He will recognize Mr. Caleb Howard and Ms. Carolina Mills, the world language teachers.
Thank you, Mr. Frangipani, Mr. Jennings, members of the Board of Education. Tonight is my honor to present two outstanding violin educators, one for her work in ESL and the other for his work in the world languages. Both are dedicated to helping our students meet every academic challenge. They are active in spreading best practices not only within the district, but also throughout New Jersey and the country. They truly represent the district's mission where all students are culturally prepared to function as world citizens. Carolina Mills was selected as World-Class Instructional Design and Assessment Featured Educator. Recipients of this award are selected from English as a second language instructors across the country. Carolina was selected based on her ability to make a difference for language learners. Ms. Mills has led a team that not only revised the district ESL curriculum to align with the English language arts curriculum, she also led teams that created an interactive pacing guide for ESL teachers to follow. Last spring, Ms. Mills and Saboteur teacher Tara Wainwright presented our ESL curriculum at the New Jersey Teacher of English as a Second Language Curriculum and New Jersey English Bilingual Educators Conference. Since this conference, curriculum documents that the team created have been downloaded and used by districts across the state. Next, Mr. Caleb Howard has been selected as the Northeast Conference of Teachers of Foreign Languages Teacher of the Year. Having been chosen as the top educator in 14 state region, Caleb will now go on to compete at the national level for the title of Teacher of the Year. Mr. Howard's dedication to teaching Spanish goes far beyond the confines of his classroom. Mr. Howard regularly provides mentoring and in-service training to assist his peers in providing the best instruction possible. He maintains an extensive online presence, including interactive websites and a student blog for helping teachers and students. He has presented multiple times for the Foreign Language Educators of New Jersey and has presented twice at the National Conference of American Council of the Teaching of Foreign Languages. Both of these teachers represent a deep conviction to service. They live that conviction every day to benefit our students, our staff, and their profession. Language instruction is gaining importance in schools across the country. This includes an emphasis on high-quality language instruction at the elementary and preschool levels with pathways towards the seal of biliteracy. It's teachers like Caleb and Carolina who make students want to learn. With their own passion for education, they capture students' imaginations, they evoke a sense of excitement, they inspire students to question, discover, and help them believe that they are capable of anything. Please join me in congratulating Ms. Mills and Mr. Howard on their success.
Finally, our student liaison is not here this evening. She called, she had too much homework. So she promised to be here next week to give her report and update from Gracie Galan. That'll,
We're going to retire to executive session on a matter as stated by Ms. Haley.